Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Brannigan. I'm the Director of Publishing with CAI, and I've been with CAI for, since 2007. Started out with our newsletters and worked my way up into Common Ground, and I've taken over CAI Press now and oversee kind of almost all of our publications and assist with all manners of editing and proofreading, things like that.
All right, hello everybody. I'm Chiara Candelaria. I am Associate Editor of Common Ground Magazine and Editor of Community Manager Newsletter. I've been with CAI since April 2019. So just a little over 2 years, close to 3. You know, kind of lose track of time when you're having fun and on deadline. I specifically was brought on to be Associate Editor of Common Ground, but since around September last year, late August, early September last year, I took over editorial duties with Community Manager Newsletter, which is our other bi-monthly print publication. I also assist with editing and proofreading, for example, Community Association Law Reporter newsletter. So I edit the cases for that newsletter, which goes out monthly. Writing and editing for our Ungated blog, and also proofreading and editing any other articles and materials, both for our communications and marketing department, as well as other departments within CAI. So good to have you all here.
All right, thanks, Chiara. All right, so we've got a little bit of a presentation here for you to run through with you guys, and talking about content development and how you can use CAI resources to help assist you with your publications and create your own content potentially. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll run through this. Let me know, are you seeing PowerPoint now? Thumbs up, anyone?
Now we see that your PowerPoint, yes.
Good, all right. So this is us, Chiara and Dan. That's our opening slide. All right, so we're talking about CI publications, and we've already mentioned a lot of them, from Common Ground and Community Manager, HOA resources, which is the newest one for us, our blogs, which include Ungated and Advocacy, Law Reporter, and then you'll find we've got archives dating back to 1973 when CI was founded, in our research library if you ever need to dig back in there, and our copyright-free newsletter articles. Each of these has a specific audience, specific goal in mind. You know, Common Ground probably as our flagship magazine. It goes to all members, but we write traditionally for the community association volunteer, the board member. We'll accept submissions from attorneys and managers, board members, but all that content is really supposed to be geared for the volunteer audience. And Chiara, go ahead on Community Manager.
Yes, so Community Manager Newsletter, as the tagline says in the front cover, if some of you have seen it, it's best practices and career strategies for community managers or community management professionals as well. You don't necessarily have to be a community manager, because it's also catered to CEOs of management companies, senior executives, managers themselves, and then other professionals within the industry. So kind of the same, since it's a more focused approach, I tend to highlight content from other community managers to talk about their experience in the industry, and if they have anything to share, any insights ideas or trends that their peers in community management should be paying attention to or aware of. And we also highlight content from business partners as well, since they work closely with managers in that regard and with their association boards. I'm also open to content from board members and all that, but it tends to be more focused for common ground in that aspect. But there's also relevant content to specifically for association boards and community manager.
And then we can quickly run through some of the others as well. And really your go-to place on figuring out which publication does what. I'm going to exit the slideshow real quick and show you. Just a moment. All right. So are you still seeing my screen and our lovely publications page?
Yes.
All right. So this is a quick rundown of almost everything we do. We talked about Common Ground and Community Manager. HOA Resources is our newest, as I mentioned. And this is really intended for the home buyers, homeowners, and association leaders, kind of people who are first figuring out what a community association is, why they should live there, and kind of guiding them as on their journey, whether they're a new board member or a seasoned board member. We also have Ungated blog, which is, we call it the place for news, tips, and trends important to community associations. This is geared more for our CAI members who are a little more knowledgeable. For Ungated, we take a lot of our content from Common Ground, from Community Manager, and we repurpose it here, a little bit shorter, a little bit condensed, quicker tips, kinds of things like that. Law Reporter, as Kiara mentioned, key court decisions, and this all throughout the country. We have an attorney in Georgia who puts it together for us, but they cover everything across the states on all manner of community association topics. And so this is kind of your home base for CAI publications. And we also here have a link to the copyright-free newsletter articles over here. I'll show you that real quick. And research library, whenever you need to dig into the archives. Not everything ends up in the research library, but a good portion of the major content does, from Common Ground, from Community Manager. It doesn't get in here right away, but we load it on a rolling basis. Our IT team does that. So that's a quick overview of our publications, and I'll jump back to the slideshow. And the reason we're running through all that is because these publications and the articles inside them are available for you to use in your own publications, at the chapter level. And we do that through the reprint requests forum. Kiara, do you want to talk a little more about that?
Yes. So as Dan mentioned, if you see an article in any of our publications, if you really liked that article you read in a particular issue of Common Ground, Community Manager, or even if you see something on Ungated or HOA Resources, and it's not just limited to the feature stories that we have. We've also had requests come in for Ask the Experts responses on the board articles. So kind of our departments also where we have like kind of the shorter articles or just the Q&As. We also receive requests for that. So if you really, really enjoy a piece of content and you would like to repurpose it or reprint it, in this case, reprinted with permission from us, you would go ahead and fill out that PDF form that you see on screen, and then submit it to the email listed there, publications@caionline.org, or you can send it directly to Dan or me. And we will take care of that reprint request. So what we'll require for it to be included in your article for purposes of reprinting is a copyright line, a reprinted with permission line, and no changes to the content unless approved. So we take care of that on our end. We have the copyright language there. But that's included in the reprint request once approved. We also appreciate if you would, in the reprint request form, mention what you would like to use the reprinted article for. If you want to share it on your social media channels, on your company website, on your blog, it just helps us to keep track of where the content is being republished. And it's good for us to keep for our records. What we can't share in the reprints are illustrations and photos, because those are specific to the magazine. Dan, feel free to chime in, but we tend to have restrictions on that due to copyright. Is that correct?
Yeah, it goes back to the licensing agreements. Like we have one on the CAI headquarters level for Getty Images, for example, and other stock image sites, and that the licenses we have for those sites are specific to, most of them are specific to the usage in, for example, Common Ground, or the usage in Community Manager, and then how we tie it to that specific article, or how we tie it to that article on social media, for example. There are some exceptions to this. Sometimes we might have a stock illustration that is licensed free, but that's rare. And of course, we do get photo submissions from member communities. And in that case, what we would do, and if you're interested in those photos, we would seek permission again from that community to share them with you. Most of them, I think, would be more than happy to share them. But those are sometimes we'll have freelance photography as well, and those usage rights we might have a little more flexibility on. Just depends. But if you are interested in the photography or graphics, whatever, just include it in the reprint request. And yes, like Crystal said, you can find a lot of the images that are available for you at the chapter level through the Media Valet. Those are readily available for you. If you don't see it on there, but you see it in our publications, just let us know, and we might be able to get permission for those as well.
All right, thank you, Dan. Yep, so essentially we'll give you a text-only version of the article that you want to reprint, and send it to you as a PDF file. So for timeline, if you want this article to appear in a specific issue of your chapter publication or newsletter, budget for around 2 weeks time, because we might be in the middle of a production cycle with Common Ground or Community Manager. So we want to be able to fulfill your request in a timely manner as much as possible. That also allows us to reach out to a specific author who may have contributed the piece in order to get their approval if needed. And then the quickest turnaround that we have, if you need a reprint, We have them for the sneak peek articles on the Common Ground page. So we tend to highlight at least 2, maybe 3 articles from each issue of Common Ground on that page, which is open to members as well as non-members. Dan, I don't know if you want to quickly show them where to find that on the website. If they're not aware.
Yeah, I can do that. And I saw Kelly dropped a link in the chat. Thanks, Kelly.
Great. Thank you, Kelly.
So yeah, this is the Common Ground, the main page for Common Ground, and then just head on over to Sneak Peek, and you'll see the list of all the articles that are available to the public. These are available for non-members. We do tend to promote these a little more than some of our other content. And you can just scroll down. We've got a couple years worth available on here. Some of them are personality profiles, but most of them you'll find are our bread and butter, our feature articles, kind of the topics we thought are most important and most relevant at that time. But yes, that's Sneak Peek.
And Dan and Kiara, can you just let the group know for the reprint request which items, like if they're doing it from Common Ground or if there's a blog, like which ones they need to do to repurpose? Is it all of them, or are there specific publications that they should use this request for?
Yeah, you guys should use the form for all of our publications, Common Ground, Community Manager, the blog, Ungated. The only place where you don't have to use it is with those copyright-free newsletter articles that I showed you a couple minutes ago. Those you are free to use and repurpose as much as you want. And those are great. For example, we have an index available on the site. You can see everything we've published, all the different topics. So you can search by topic. You can take that content and edit it if you want. You could add to it or just run it as is. It's a really great resource. We built up, I want to say, almost 100 articles in there. We used to update it quarterly, but found we got a really good supply and stopped doing it on a quarterly basis. We may add more to it going forward, but for now, we haven't been adding any more. But most of them are evergreen, and you can just plug and play with those.
Yep, make them your own. You can certainly take the information that you see there and personalize it to your needs. You know, since you're you know, if there's any information that's relevant to the region you're located in and to the members of your chapter, you can certainly plug in that information to make it more personalized and relevant.
Yep. And then we move into kind of creating your own content. We covered how you can use some CAI resources and getting content for your publications, but moving into the next phase, creating your own. What we do as a team is create an editorial calendar, and I highly recommend you do that for your own publications. As you know, with Common Ground, we publish 6 issues a year. We try and get it up for the year in advance. We're a little bit behind at this point for 2022, but we're gathering as a team over the next couple of weeks to finalize that editorial calendar for 2022. And really, it's just a guidepost. And there are a lot of times we move our topics around. You don't have to have it set in stone, but it gives your people who are interested in contributing and an editorial committee, if they have one, a way to start planning and a way to kind of maybe even get some ideas in. Someone might see the topics you have available in your editorial calendar and say, I can cover that, or let me take this angle on it. That's kind of what we do for Common Ground. We don't do it as much with community manager. We just have kind of a little bit looser there. We've started to get a little more planned with that. We don't necessarily do it with as frequently with ungated or HOA resources. Those are more like weekly discussions and planning out from there. But if you have a monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly publication at the chapter level, highly recommend the editorial calendar. So where do you start from there, right? You kind of, what we do and what you could do as well is follow the local news coverage. Set up Google alerts if you want. We have several running on specific terms, and we turn to those very frequently. We also been turning a lot more frequently to the CAI Smart Brief, and that comes to your inboxes on a weekly basis. I've included a link here in this slide where you can access it and sign up. And that is kind of like its own news digest on some of the topics that are happening across the country. So definitely recommend that. We also turn very frequently to our past topics in Common Ground and Community Manager. What new angle can we provide on this topic, like rules, for example? We know there are set topics that we cover year in, year out, but it does help to go back and see, here's how we covered it last year or the year before that. What can we do? What can we do to refresh it and update it? As you know, there's a lot of evergreen topics that come up: rules, conflict, meetings, things like that. And then for finding additional ideas, we look at law seminar sessions, conference sessions, the webinar descriptions and titles and presenters, and you can do that at the local level as well. Feel free to use the national resources, and then look at the sessions people are talking about at your annual events or regular events. We will also frequently turn to discussions happening on CAI Exchange. What are people talking about now? What's on their minds? What do they need help with? In fact, that's where we get a lot of our Ask the Experts questions from. We find a topic that is something that not a lot of answers have been submitted on, something that's a little unique, and we will connect that question with an expert and get that draft up. So that's kind of the first step in creating your own content, setting up an editorial calendar, creating some ideas. And then we've got writer's guidelines for Common Ground. You'll see, and here's a link, another link for you, caionline.org/writers. You'll see what we have up for Common Ground. Feel free to use that and adapt it for your own publications. But you'll kind of see Common Ground's mission and our target audience. So think about those things as you build your editorial calendar and as you work toward getting contributors, and what options are available for people. Set your word counts for your specific articles, your sections and departments. You'll see on Common Ground, for example, we've got feature articles listed on there, and they can range in length from 1,500 to 2,400 words. But we also give people, interested contributors, some easier ways to get involved with submitting articles, shorter word counts. A lot of our departments in the back of the book, back of the magazine, could be like 500 words, ranging it up to 1,000. So give people options, but it's good to set those kind of parameters and give them some ideas on where they can contribute. And then we do have editorial policy, and I highly recommend you do that as well. Just kind of briefly going through ours is we do require articles that are submitted to Common Ground to be original. That means they're not published elsewhere or submitted for publishing elsewhere. Obviously, they have to be accurate. Can't have a lot of false things floating out there. We want to be truthful and accurate, and then exclusive. And this does relate back to the reprint request form. So the exclusivity relates it to Common Ground, and then we tie that into, if you wanted to repurpose it, you have to come to us first, because we want to be the leader on this topic. We want to get the best information out there to our audience, and we want to be able to market it that way. So when you come to us, that's why we say we've got to either go back to the author, if it's a volunteer, or a freelance writer. We've got a little more wiggle room because of the contracts we create for our freelance writers, but that's why we say exclusive. This is content you can't find elsewhere. And then we need our articles to be objective, not promotional, not promoting your particular company or product or service, unless it's a sponsored content piece, for example. That is an option. You can buy that option through our advertising and sales. And sometimes we do need to walk a tight line with that, particularly on articles submitted by our business partners. Obviously, they want to promote themselves and their company and their services. So it is a little tight line, but that's why the idea and our goal is to be objective. And then all submissions to Common Ground, the community manager, to any of our publications have to be open to editing. And that's so that we can maintain a certain style and a certain level of content within the magazine, and to make sure we're hitting all of our goals, to make sure we're achieving our mission for Common Ground. All right, and moving on to editorial committee. I also recommend, I've seen a lot of the chapter publications, a lot of you do have an editorial committee. They do require work and some feeding, but they can be very beneficial for you. They're great for developing ideas, bouncing ideas off of the people on your committee, and finding contributors, unless it's, I mean, they could be contributing the articles themselves, the people on your committee, or they could be reaching out to their contacts, their sources, their colleagues and clients to help out. So definitely recommend that. We do have one for Common Ground. We haven't been using it as frequently. When I started editing Common Ground in 2010, late 2010, I did turn to that group very frequently because I was still new to the role and understanding the industry and the topics, the people. I haven't relied on them as much recently, but they're still there if I need to bounce ideas and questions off of them. or if we're ever in a pinch, I know I could turn to them for support. And Kiara, do you want to talk a little bit about easy solutions and volunteers?
Yes. So yeah, you don't have to feel like this is a severe undertaking. You know, sometimes that content just comes from people within your chapter who write their own blog or their own posts. And examples include, you know, law firms tend to have blogs with legislative updates that are relevant to community associations, or question and answer type of content that it's very similar to what we do with Ask the Experts, but they have it for they cover you know, a broader list of topics, and then they might be state specific. So that also contributes to content that's relevant to members members from your chapter wherever you're located. And they and in addition to that, we also have you also can find educational posts from business partners websites, because we've seen business partners that want to publish content out there that's more informative. You know, they're not just out there to promote their product or service. They actually want to be able to inform people, you know, why should you you know, consider Sarahscaping if you're trying to handle drought mitigation, you know, if you're trying to have your community you know, move towards drought mitigation, or why should you upkeep your ponds, or you know, what insurance trends are out there that you should keep an eye out for. So you can look at what your business partners are doing and then see if they would like to share that content with you. And I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to once you make the approach, just so they can get you know, more that information to other channels besides their own content. So keep that in mind. You know, you don't have to create content from scratch. You know, sometimes it's just right there on an existing website.
Yep, and we do this as well, and I know we talked about the editorial policy and articles have to be original. This is the chance where we have some of those exceptions. We, for example, we'll do this sometimes for Common Ground when we're really in a pinch. We don't have anything for the Ask the Expert section. There's a hole there. We have a couple agreements with some of our attorney members who run regular Q&As on their site, or they publish their Q&As in the local newspaper. We'll sometimes turn to them and say, we've got this hole, can we use it? And they almost always say yes. Sometimes we might have to include originally reprinted in such and such, or in this location, but that's fine. And I think if we're upfront about that, it's no concerns. All right, so more about creating your own content. One of the things we do with Common Ground, particularly the feature articles, is we build assignment plans. We talk, this is particularly important when we're working with our freelance writers, because they aren't as knowledgeable in the fields, they aren't the experts, but we want them to act like they are through their writing, right? And this is why we build these assignment plans. We create the scope, kind of what you want the article to cover, what questions should it answer, and we build out some of the sources. Who should the writers contact? and background materials, like, has the topic been covered in the past? Here's how we've done it. Here's who you might want to reach out to for a new angle, or get an update on the story we ran a year or two ago. How is it happening now? What are things like now? And how should it be covered now? And we can share our samples of both these assignment plans and some of the assignment letters we create for our freelance writers. I highly recommend these steps to get the content you want back. We've sometimes been a little loosey-goosey with our assignments in the past, and we haven't been happy with the return. But if you do this planning in advance, and this is another task that would be very beneficial for your editorial committee, you can get the content you want back for your publication, the content that hits your goals, your messages, and your audience. And let me show you real quick an example we have of one of our assignment letters. That's the assignment letter. Hang on. Yes. Here is one we created just recently for an article that's running. You're getting a little preview here in the November-December Common Ground. It's about pests and wildlife. So we talk about which issue it'll run, the word count, due date, and we run through kind of a quick summary of what we're thinking the article will cover. Conflict with pests and animals in community associations, the wild world out there. We know communities are being developed in these beautiful locations, these remote locations, and it's in the wildlife. And you're gonna come across alligators and bobcats and chickens, sometimes backyard chickens, things like that. So you'll see we've got here some of the articles we've covered in the past on that particular topic, who we interviewed or who authored it at the time. And that builds out some of the source lists. And then we look at Google Alerts, or Google News, and CAI Smart Brief sometimes for articles that are happening now, news that's happening now or recently. This Vultures article, we knew we had to cover, and we did end up getting it in this issue out of Broadlands, Virginia. Nuisance birds, peacocks. So we build out some of this information, and it makes it easier for the freelancers to do their job. And if they're doing their job, we're going to be happy with the content they get back to us. All right. And then more on creating your own content. We do also create, particularly for the freelance writers, a contract. We draft an assignment contract with them. It helps confirm assignments and sets expectations, and it all relates back to the editorial policy. You can do this as well for your volunteer contributors. We have one that's distinct for our freelance writers and our volunteer contributors, those contracts. We don't always run it through with the volunteer contributors, that contract, but we talk about with them up front when they first express interest in contributing, or they come to us. These are the things we expect. This is our editorial policy, and they're almost always fine with it. Sometimes we get a little pushback because they want to be able to take that article and promote it. They want to be able to take it with them to a presentation and a national event, for example. So we work with them on those agreements. And these contracts, they protect you as a publisher with your magazine or newsletter, and they protect the author. Importantly, it assigns these contracts, they assign the copyright to you. It gives you the right to publish this article, and that you're not infringing upon someone else's copyright by doing so. We're happy to share a sample of one of our contracts as well. I'll give you an idea. And then kind of finally, it's where do you find, if you're not getting volunteer contributors, and sometimes we don't, we do rely on our freelancers, but sometimes we are in a pinch as well, and we need to find new freelance writers. A lot of our contacts and the folks we use with Common Ground and some of our other publications are people we already know or who have been referred to us. But there are a lot of great organizations out there for freelance writers. I've included here the American Society of Journalists and Authors and the Editorial Freelancers Association. Both of these organizations have kind of a find a writer tool on their websites, and I can show you real quick. You can just go there and find a professional. You can really narrow it down on skills or genre, the type of style if you really wanted in your publication, state. Obviously, that would be important to you at the chapter level. So this is with the National Association of Independent Writers and Editors. And then the other organization is the American Society of Journalists and Authors. And you can similarly go in here, select the type of writer you're looking for, particular subjects, if that's relevant, and skills in media that you are expecting them to produce. And again, narrow it down. But those are some of the organizations I recommend. And if you are ever looking for a freelance writer, and just feel free to reach out to me as well. Me and Kiara, we've got a base of freelance writers that we turn to frequently, and happy to give them more work if they're interested, and put them in touch with you. I've done that a couple times with a couple of the chapters, and it's worked out, and on both levels, the freelancer level and on the chapter level. So builds those relationships. And that's
Dan, we do have two questions related to that, if you don't mind. One is, do you need to be a member or join either of those organizations to get access to the lists of writers?
No, you don't need to be a member of those organizations. You can use their tool. You might need to give them your email address, but it's open. It's free to use, and people get good content back when they use those tools.
And then in terms of using a freelance writer, what kind of budget ranges would you expect for the chapter to potentially budget if they decided to use one of these?
Well, it depends on the assignment, what kind of writing you're looking for, how long, and if you think there will be additional assignments in the future. We typically pay our freelance writers for Common Ground between 75 cents to $1 a word. And those are relationships we've built over several years. Some freelance writers might require more, some might require less. It really depends on the assignment, and those figures are for our feature articles, for our 2,400 word articles, our 2,000 word articles. So they know they're getting a hefty assignment. They need to do this amount of research, contact these number of people, and they're going to get compensated for that work.
Great. Thank you.
And that's kind of what we prepared for you. Any questions for me, Kiara? Kiara, do you have anything else to add that I didn't cover or we didn't cover yet?
No, I think we touched on the most important points. I think one of the things I wanted to mention was the perspectives page that we have on the website. If you want to show them that real quick.
Sure.
Because that's where we put our perspectives articles that run in Common Ground in the Your Turn section. So we put them here and on this page as well. And you can see they don't come up with every issue. It just depends on when we get them and if we approve them for publication. But this is another place where you can find, if you're looking for like quick topic ideas, you can read, this runs the gamut of different topics, and it's just a perspective from that article, from that author's point of view. And it's also a good place, like if you maybe remember seeing a perspectives article that you really liked, but can't remember the issue, you can go here and be like, oh, I like the cost of COVID-19 article from Karen Martinez. Can I, request a reprint of that? And then you can send us the form and we can fulfill that reprint request for you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
So at this time, I think we're going to open it up. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there specific, this is Crystal, I'm sorry I'm not on video, I'm having internet issues, but I'm curious from the CEDs and staff, what have been your greatest challenges with content? And have Dan and Kiara address them?
Hey, Crystal, this is Gabby here from the Keystone chapter. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Gabby?
Good. Yeah, I think Dan and Kiara definitely addressed some issues that we have. I think it's more just trying to get different members. We have communications and content, so editorial committee, and they help get information and articles. We do blogs. I think it's just making sure that we kind of get information that the members actually want to read about. A lot of times on the committees come up with great ideas, but I think it's just trying to make sure that it's great information that the organization, the membership wants to hear, and just making sure that we kind of keep it fresh. So it's not the same writers that's like writing the articles all the time. I think we're starting to get better with that. And we try to do sometimes themed issues for the magazine. So it kind of keeps it fun, fresh. That's just something that we do.
Thank
Nice.
you, Gabby.
Yeah, and one of the things I didn't talk about, and something we haven't done in a while, and a way to gather ideas, make sure you're hitting your members and giving them what they want, are readership surveys. We traditionally conduct them for Common Ground every 3 years or so. We're running a little bit behind. I think we last conducted one with Common Ground in 2017, but 2020 came and kind of blew everything up for us. And we haven't gotten back to it, but we do anticipate putting out a readership survey again, probably in 2022. And it's a really good way to one, gather ideas or potential sources, and ask people, straightforward. Is this content that you want? Are we giving you the content that you want?
Thanks, Dan. That's a great idea.
I also want to add on a similar note, if you're also having a little bit of trouble finding maybe volunteer contributors, you can place a sort of a call for contributions in your publication. For example, I did that this year for community manager in the January-February issue, sort of to like open that up to people who are interested in contributing. And you may initially get like, you know, one person, you may get a couple. And you may also maybe want to keep it as kind of like a constant thing in your publication, you know, just a little corner that says, you know, if you have any insights or thoughts or opinions or anything that you want to share your expertise on with our chapter membership, then you can share the specific email, you know, to your editorial committee, so they can send their submissions, potential submissions to your editorial committee, or a point of contact who can handle those submissions. Because that also, you know, helps membership see like, oh, you know, they're open to receiving content. And it goes back to kind of what we mentioned from, you know, you may have your business partner members that already have content created and they're like, hey, you know, I have this article submission here. You know, can I send it to you for consideration for publication? So that's another way that you could potentially get contributors to your newsletter or chapter publication.
Dan, Kiara, thank you for joining us today. I hope you guys all found this beneficial. Again, we will be posting this into the toolkit. Dan, if you have any of those samples or anything that you want to provide, if you just want to send them over to me, we'll get them posted in the toolkit as well with that.
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you guys have a great Wednesday.
If you have any questions, please contact a member of the Chapter Relations team or email chapterlearning@caionline.org.